The research vessel Horizon drifted silently through the Carina Nebula, its advanced sensors prodding the cosmic dust for signs of the anomaly that had brought them to this remote corner of space. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the swirling colors of the nebula. After 15 years of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, humanity's first contact would happen not with a bang, but with a whisper. "Dr. Chen, we're picking up something unusual." Lieutenant James Rodriguez's voice crackled through the ship's comm system. "The quantum signature we've been tracking. It's changing." Sarah hurried to the bridge, her heart racing. The Horizon's crew of 30 had spent the last 6 months following a trail of quantum disturbances that defied known physics. Now, finally, they might have answers. The bridge hummed with tension as holographic displays showed streams of data that made Sarah's scientific mind reel. The quantum signatures weren't random. They were a language, a message written in the fabric of space-time itself. "It's a beacon," Sarah breathed, her fingers flying over the console. "They've been waiting for us to find it." As if in response to her words, space itself seemed to ripple. A massive vessel materialized before them, its surface shimmering with patterns that seemed to defy human perception. It was beautiful, alien, and utterly impossible by every law of physics humanity knew. "This is Captain Maya Patil of the Earth research vessel Horizon." Maya's steady voice carried across the void. "We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding." For several tense moments, silence reigned. Then, a response came, not through conventional communications, but directly into their minds. The sensation was gentle but unmistakable. "We are the Meridians. We have watched, we have waited, and now you have found us." The alien presence shared images and concepts, a civilization spanning millions of years, watching countless species rise and fall. The Meridians were custodians of knowledge, observers who rarely intervened, but always watched. "Why reveal yourselves to us now?" Sarah asked, both terrified and thrilled by this moment she had dreamed of since childhood. "Because you are different," came the response. "In all our observations, we have never encountered a species quite like humanity." Through the mental link, the Meridians shared their observations, humans healing their wounded instead of abandoning them, sacrificing themselves for strangers, creating art that served no practical purpose, asking questions about their own existence. Most remarkably, humans had developed technology not through steady, predictable progression, but through innovative leaps that defied conventional evolution. "You've been studying us," Captain Patel stated, her voice carrying a hint of accusation. "For how long?" "Since your first radio signals reached the stars. We detected something unique in your species, a paradox that both troubled and intrigued us." The Meridians explained that humanity possessed a rare combination: the drive to explore and expand, coupled with the capacity for deep empathy and abstract thought. Most species had one or the other, but never both in such measure. "And now you want to, what? Test us? Judge us?" Rodriguez asked, his hand unconsciously moving toward the weapons console. "We wish to understand you," the Meridians responded. "Your species defies our models. Your decisions often seem irrational by our standards, yet you achieve remarkable results. We have debated for decades whether to make contact." Sarah stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her caution. "Then let us show you who we are. Not through observation, but through direct interaction. Let us learn from each other." The Meridian ship pulsed with new patterns, and the crew felt a wave of what could only be described as curiosity wash over them. "Your eagerness to learn, even in the face of potential danger, is precisely what makes your species unique," the Meridians observed. "Very well, Dr. Chen. We accept your proposal, but be warned. There are others in the galaxy who view humanity's unique traits not with curiosity, but with fear." As the crew of the Horizon began establishing protocols for this historic first contact, none of them realized they had just set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity's reputation for defying expectations was about to be tested in ways they couldn't imagine, and the Meridians would soon learn why making assumptions about humans was a dangerous proposition indeed. 2 weeks after first contact, the Horizon's crew found themselves aboard the Meridian vessel, which they'd learned was called the Eternal Seeker. The ship's interior defied conventional geometry. Spaces seemed to fold into themselves, and corridors shifted like living things. Yet somehow, the humans were adapting. Sarah sat cross-legged in what the Meridians called a knowledge chamber, surrounded by holographic representations of mathematical equations that would revolutionize human understanding of physics. But something felt off about this generous sharing of information. "You're testing us, aren't you?" she asked the Meridian guide, whom they'd named Aurora for its shimmering, dawn-like appearance. "These aren't just learning sessions. Your perception is keen," Aurora acknowledged. "Yes, we observe how you process and apply new information. Your species learns differently." In another section of the ship, Lieutenant Rodriguez was running combat simulations with a Meridian defense specialist. The scenarios were impossibly complex, with variables that shouldn't have been predictable. Yet James kept finding solutions, often by breaking the very rules of the simulation. The objective was to save the colony while preserving your forces, the Meridian instructor noted after James sacrificed his flagship to create a diversion that saved twice as many lives. "Your choice was inefficient." "Efficiency isn't everything," James replied, thinking of the virtual crew he'd chosen to sacrifice. "Sometimes, the cost of victory matters more than victory itself." Captain Patel, meanwhile, was engaged in what seemed like diplomatic discussions, but felt increasingly like philosophical sparring matches. The Meridians presented her with ethical dilemmas that had no clear solutions, watching intently as she worked through each scenario. "You keep presenting us with impossible choices," Maya observed during one session. "Scenarios where every option has a terrible cost." "Why?" "Because we need to understand how humans handle impossibility," came the response. "Other species we've encountered either accept defeat or become paralyzed by such situations. Humans innovate." As the days passed, the tests grew more challenging. The crew was pushed to their physical and mental limits, but something unexpected was happening. They were beginning to see patterns in the Meridians' behavior too. Sarah was the first to notice it during a particularly complex physics demonstration. "Your equations," she said suddenly, "they're not just about sharing knowledge. You're trying to understand how we'll use it. You're afraid." The Meridian's crystalline form flickered. A gesture they'd learned indicated surprise. "Explain your reasoning. Every piece of information you've shared has been carefully chosen. You're not testing our capability to learn. You're testing our judgment, our ethics." Sarah stood up, her mind racing. "You've encountered other species with potential like ours before, haven't you?" And something went wrong. The knowledge chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, the holographic equations transformed into images, scenes of destruction, of worlds laid waste by species who'd gained knowledge without wisdom. "Yes," Aurora admitted. 3 times we have encountered species with your potential. 3 times we shared our knowledge. 3 times we watched them destroy themselves and others." Captain Patel, who had just entered the chamber, stepped forward. "So that's what this is really about. You're not just testing us. You're trying to decide if we're safe." "Your species possesses remarkable potential," Aurora explained. "But potential can be destructive as easily as creative. We needed to understand which path you would choose." "And what have you concluded?" James asked, joining them. The entire human delegation had gathered now, sensing the gravity of the moment. Before Aurora could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The Meridian's form pulsed with urgent patterns they'd never seen before. "We are under attack," Aurora announced. "The Nexus has found us." "The Nexus?" Maya asked, already moving toward the command center with her crew. "The 4th species we encountered. The ones who survived their own destructive phase by becoming something other. They believe they are the next step in evolution, and they eliminate any species they deem to be potential rivals. Why haven't you stopped them? James demanded, his military training kicking in as he analyzed tactical displays. Because their evolution made them unpredictable, beyond our models of behavior. Like humans, they defy our understanding. But unlike humans, they lack empathy, Sarah finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. That's why you've been so interested in our capacity for both innovation and compassion. The ship shuddered as the first attacks hit their shields. Through the viewing ports, they could see dark shapes emerging from fold space, ships that seemed to absorb light itself. This is not part of our test, Aurora stated, but it may be the most important test of all. The Nexus believes that emotion and empathy are evolutionary weaknesses. They seek to prove this by destroying any species that exhibits these traits while maintaining technological advancement. Captain Patel straightened her uniform, a determined glint in her eye. Well then, let's prove them wrong. Lieutenant Rodriguez, access their tactical systems. Dr. Chen, I want you analyzing their tech for weaknesses. It's time to show both the Meridians and the Nexus what humanity does best, turning impossible situations into victories. As the crew rushed to their positions, Aurora observed them with what could only be described as hope. Perhaps, finally, they had found a species that could face the Nexus not just with technological prowess, but with the one thing the Nexus couldn't understand: the strength that comes from valuing all life, not just victory. The Eternal Seeker's command center had transformed into a fusion of human intuition and Meridian technology. Sarah Chen's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, while James Rodriguez called out tactical updates. Captain Patel stood at the center, coordinating with both her crew and the Meridians as the Nexus ships pressed their attack. Their tech is organic, Sarah announced, her eyes wide as data streamed across her display. The ships aren't just biomechanical. They're evolving during combat, adapting to our defensive strategies in real time. Correct, Aurora confirmed. This is why the Nexus has been unstoppable. Their technology learns and evolves faster than any response we can devise. Evolution, Maya murmured, then straightened. Sarah, you said their ships are organic. Do they share a neural network? Are they connected? Yes, but we have never been able to exploit this connection. Their network defies. Lieutenant Rodriguez, Maya interrupted. Remember that training simulation where you introduced a virus to take down an entire fleet? James grinned. The one the Meridians called inefficient because it required sacrificing the delivery vessel. Captain, that was just a simulation. This is the perfect time to try something crazy, Maya finished. Sarah, can you modify the Meridian's quantum communication technology to carry a different kind of signal? Understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes. A feedback loop. If their ships are truly organic and connected. She turned to Aurora. We need access to your ship's quantum core. What you suggest is impossible, Aurora stated. The quantum core is too complex for any single species to modify, Sarah agreed. But we're not a single species anymore, are we? The Eternal Seeker shuddered as another barrage hit their shields. Warning signals flashed across the displays. The Nexus ships were beginning to breach their defenses. You suggest we merge our knowledge. Aurora's form rippled with uncertainty. Such a union has never been attempted. The energy requirements alone would be massive. Sarah finished. Yes, but you have the power, and we have the creativity to use it in ways you haven't considered. This is why humans are different, isn't it? We see possibilities where others see only limitations. Maya stepped forward. Aurora, you've been testing whether humanity can be trusted with advanced knowledge. But trust goes both ways. Are you willing to trust us now? For a moment that felt like eternity, Aurora was silent. Then, what do you need? The next hour was a blur of activity. Sarah and a team of Meridian scientists worked to modify the quantum core, while James and Maya coordinated the defense of the ship. The Nexus pressed harder, as if sensing something was happening. They're trying to break through to the core, James reported. Shields are at 15%. Just need a few more minutes, Sarah called back, her hands moving faster than she'd thought possible as she merged human computer code with Meridian quantum mathematics. This has to be perfect, or they have breached the outer hull, Aurora announced. Security drones are engaging, but they cannot hold for long. Done, Sarah shouted. Captain, the quantum pulse is ready. But, she hesitated. We only get one shot, and we'll be vulnerable for 20 seconds while the core recharges. 20 seconds against ships that can adapt to any strategy in microseconds, James muttered. Those aren't good odds. Maya's face was grim. No, they're not. But humanity didn't get to the stars by playing it safe. She turned to Aurora. Can your people evacuate to the emergency pods if this fails? We will not abandon our human allies, Aurora stated firmly. Not abandonment, insurance, Maya corrected. If this works, we'll need someone to tell our story. And if it fails, she smiled grimly. Well, the galaxy should know that humans and Meridians faced the impossible together. You continue to surprise us, Captain. Aurora's form pulsed with what they'd learned to recognize as admiration. Very well. On your command. Maya took a deep breath, looking at her crew, the best humanity had to offer, standing shoulder to shoulder with beings from across the galaxy, about to attempt something that had never been done before. Sarah, start the sequence. James, divert all remaining power to the quantum core. Aurora. She smiled. Let's make history. The ship's lights dimmed as power rushed to the core. Sarah's modified pulse began to build, a combination of Meridian quantum technology and human computer viruses that would use the Nexus's own neural network against them. Nexus ships are in optimal range, James reported. Shields critical. Core charge at 95%. 98%. Now, Sarah shouted. The pulse fired, and for a moment, everything went dark. Then the view screens lit up with a spectacular sight. The Nexus ships, their organic technology connected by the neural network that had made them so powerful, began to turn on themselves. The virus, carried by quantum particles that ignored conventional defenses, triggered a cascade of confusion through their linked consciousness. It's working, Sarah breathed. Their evolution is working against them. Each ship is trying to adapt differently, but they're still connected. They're tearing themselves apart. But victory didn't come without cost. As the quantum core recharged, a single Nexus ship, somehow isolated from the network, broke through their failing shields. Its weapons powered up, aimed directly at the bridge. For humanity, Aurora declared, and moved faster than anyone thought possible, interposing its crystalline form between the weapon and the crew. The blast struck, and Aurora's form began to crack. No, Sarah screamed, but then the quantum core came back online. The remaining Nexus ship, caught in the second pulse, joined its brethren in self-destruction. As the light from the explosions faded, the bridge crew rushed to Aurora's side. The Meridian's form was severely damaged, but pulses of light still moved through its crystalline structure. We were right about humanity, Aurora managed to communicate. You are different, special. The galaxy needs your kind of impossible. Save your strength, Sarah urged, already working with other Meridians to stabilize Aurora's form. We did this together, and we'll heal together too. That's another thing about humans. We don't leave anyone behind. As emergency teams worked to repair the ship and heal the wounded, news of the battle spread through subspace channels. The impossible had happened. The Nexus, thought to be invincible, had been defeated by a cooperation that should never have worked. Throughout the galaxy, species that had hidden from the Nexus began to emerge, looking toward Earth with new interest. Humanity had passed more than just the Meridian's test. They had proven that evolution didn't have to mean losing what made them human. Sometimes, the very traits that seemed like weaknesses, empathy, cooperation, the willingness to risk everything to save others, were the greatest strengths of all. In the 3 months since the defeat of the Nexus, the Eternal Seeker had become a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. Aurora, fully recovered thanks to a combination of meridian healing techniques and human medical innovations, now served as an ambassador between humanity and the numerous species emerging from hiding. But Sarah Chen couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She stood in the knowledge chamber, reviewing data from the battle for the 100th time. The Nexus couldn't have been this simple to defeat, she muttered. They dominated the galaxy for centuries. Why didn't they have safeguards against this kind of attack? Because they never expected to need them, James Rodriguez answered, entering the chamber. His military training had made him equally suspicious of their too-neat victory. Arrogance was their weakness. Or maybe, Sarah said slowly, that's what they wanted us to think. The ship's alert system activated before James could respond. Captain Patel's voice echoed through the corridors. All senior staff to the command center immediately. When they arrived, Maya's face was grim. Aurora's crystalline form pulsed with patterns they'd learned to recognize as deep concern. On the main display, a disturbing scene played out. Across the galaxy, seemingly dormant Nexus technology was activating, but not in the way they'd expected. It's not attacking, Sarah observed, studying the readings. It's transforming. The Nexus ships we destroyed were not their main force, Aurora explained. They were seeds, designed to be destroyed. Their destruction released spores throughout the galaxy, spores that are now integrating with existing technology on thousands of worlds. A trap, James said quietly. We didn't defeat them. We helped them spread. Maya nodded. The quantum pulse we used didn't just affect their ships. It carried their evolutionary code across the galaxy. Every piece of advanced technology infected by these spores is being reformed into something new. Something that combines Nexus engineering with the adaptability we showed them. Sarah finished, horror dawning in her eyes. They used our own innovation against us. They wanted us to prove we could think outside their parameters, so they could incorporate that thinking into their own evolution. The displays showed more evidence of the transformation. Defense systems, power plants, communication arrays, all evolving into hybrid forms that combine Nexus organic technology with elements inspired by human unpredictability. We estimate we have 48 hours before the transformation is complete, Aurora stated. Once that happens, every infected system will become part of a new Nexus network, one that combines their ruthless efficiency with human creativity. Then we have 48 hours to stop it, Maya declared. Sarah, you understand both their tech and ours better than anyone. What are we dealing with? Sarah's fingers flew across the holographic displays, analyzing data. The spores are like a virus, but they're not just changing the technology. They're learning from it, incorporating beneficial traits. It's digital evolution at an unprecedented scale. She paused, something catching her eye. Wait, that's interesting. What is it? James asked, recognizing the tone in her voice. The one that usually preceded either a breakthrough or a catastrophe. The spores aren't just learning from our technology. They're learning from all technology they encounter, including, she turned to Aurora, Meridian quantum systems. Yes, Aurora confirmed. Our defensive measures are already being absorbed and adapted. But that's their weakness, Sarah said, excitement building in her voice. They're trying to absorb and adapt everything at once. What if we gave them too much to handle? Maya leaned forward. Explain. The Nexus based their strategy on our first victory. They expected us to try something clever but straightforward. But what if we do something completely illogical? What if we send them everything? Everything? James asked. Every scrap of code, every technological concept, every contradictory idea humanity has ever had about how machines should work. And not just human ideas, Meridian concepts too, and any other species willing to help. We flood their evolutionary algorithm with so much contradictory information that it can't establish a stable pattern. The energy requirements for such a transmission would be astronomical, Aurora noted. And we would need to reach every infected system simultaneously. Then we'll need help, Maya said. She opened a channel to the thousands of ships that had gathered near the Eternal Seeker in recent months. Vessels from species that had hidden from the Nexus for generations, now looking to humanity for leadership. This is Captain Maya Patel of Earth, she broadcast. The Nexus is attempting to transform our technology against us. We have a plan to stop them, but we need every ship, every transmitter, every quantum-capable device you have. We need to show them what real evolution looks like, not the cold, efficient process they imagine, but the messy, contradictory, beautiful chaos that true growth requires. The response was immediate. Ships began moving into position, their crews transmitting signals of agreement. Species that had survived in isolation for centuries now worked together, coordinating the largest technological burst transmission ever attempted. Sarah worked with Aurora to prepare the payload, a massive data package containing everything from Earth's earliest computer code to the most advanced Meridian quantum theories, all deliberately scrambled and interwoven with contradictions and logical paradoxes. The Nexus thinks they can absorb and improve everything they encounter, Sarah said as she worked. Let's see how they handle 1,000 different operating systems trying to run simultaneously, each one telling their evolution to go in a different direction. As the transformed technology spread across more systems, the clock ticked down. They would only get one chance at this. If they failed, the galaxy would face a threat greater than the original Nexus, one that combined the worst aspects of every species' technology, with none of their wisdom or restraint. The fate of not just humanity, but all sentient life, now rested on a plan that defied logic itself. But then, that was humanity's specialty, doing the impossible by refusing to accept the limitations others saw as absolute. The combined fleet of 1,000 species hung in space like a constellation of hope. Each ship's quantum transmitters had been modified according to Sarah's specifications, ready to broadcast the largest data surge in galactic history. On the bridge of the Eternal Seeker, Captain Maya Patel watched the final countdown. All ships report ready, James announced from his station. Quantum synchronization at 98%. Sarah's fingers danced across her console, making final adjustments to the data package. The infection has reached 60% of galactic systems, she reported. If we wait any longer, there won't be enough unaffected transmitters to carry the signal. The risk of this strategy remains significant, Aurora observed. Flooding every system with contradictory information could crash more than just the Nexus evolution. We may lose centuries of technological progress. Better to go back a few centuries than to let the Nexus create a future without free will, Maya replied. She opened a channel to the fleet. This is Captain Patel. In 1 minute, we make our stand. Not just for humanity, not just for the Meridians, but for every species that believes evolution should serve life, not control it. The seconds ticked down. Across the galaxy, the Nexus transformation accelerated, as if sensing the coming attack. Power grids flickered, defense systems went haywire, and communication networks began speaking in alien languages. 30 seconds, James called out. Sarah looked up from her station. Captain, there's something else. The data simulation shows, well, there's a small chance this could do more than just stop the Nexus. Explain. The quantum surge won't just be carrying data, it'll be carrying ideas. Human ideas, Meridian philosophy, concepts from 1,000 different civilizations. If any of the Nexus consciousness survives, it won't just be disrupted. It might be educated. 10 seconds, James announced. Maya straightened in her chair. Then let's give them one hell of a lesson. Sarah, start the transmission. Broadcasting in 3, 2, 1. The Eternal Seeker shuddered as it began transmitting the massive data package. Across the fleet, thousands of ships did the same. The combined power of their broadcast lit up space itself, quantum particles carrying contradictory computer code, philosophical paradoxes, and the accumulated wisdom of the galaxy's species. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, system by system, the Nexus transformation began to falter. On infected worlds, the hybrid technology stopped its relentless evolution, caught in loops of contradictory instructions. The spores, designed to absorb and adapt to new information, found themselves drowning in an ocean of competing ideas. "It's working," James reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "Nexus integration is failing across all sectors." But something unexpected was happening too. Instead of simply crashing, the infected systems began exhibiting new behaviors. On some worlds, transformed technology began creating art. On others, it initiated communication with local species, asking questions about consciousness and free will. "Remarkable," Aurora observed. "The Nexus sought to absorb creativity and unpredictability as weapons. Instead, they are learning to use them as tools for understanding." "They're evolving," Sarah whispered, watching the data streams. "Not like before, not toward some perfect, efficient ideal. They're evolving like we do, messily, imperfectly, but with purpose." The transformation swept across the galaxy, but instead of the cold, unified consciousness the Nexus had intended, something new emerged. Each system developed differently, influenced by the local species and cultures it encountered. Unity through diversity, strength through difference. The very principles the Nexus had rejected were now becoming their salvation. Hours later, as the dust settled and damage reports came in, the full scope of what had happened began to emerge. The galaxy had changed forever, but not in the way anyone had expected. The Nexus threat was over, not because they had been destroyed, but because they had been transformed by the very chaos they had sought to eliminate. In the knowledge chamber of the Eternal Seeker, Sarah stood with Aurora, watching the results of their gamble unfold. "So what happens now?" she asked. "We've given birth to something entirely new. Thousands of hybrid systems, each one developing its own kind of consciousness. Now," Aurora replied, "we do what life has always done. We adapt. We learn. We grow. But this time, we do it together." Captain Patel joined them, looking tired but satisfied. "The Meridians tested us because they wanted to know if we could be trusted with advanced knowledge. The Nexus tried to use our creativity as a weapon. In the end, we showed them both that the real power of humanity isn't in our technology or our adaptability. It's in our ability to embrace chaos while holding on to our humanity," James added, completing the thought. "To face the impossible and find a third option." The view screen showed ships from across the galaxy, their crews celebrating not just survival, but the dawn of a new era. Humanity had proved itself not by conquering or dominating, but by sharing. Their ideas, their contradictions, their very way of thinking. As the Eternal Seeker set course for Earth, carrying representatives from 100 worlds eager to establish formal relations with humanity, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. The Meridians had sought to test humanity's worth, and the Nexus had tried to exploit their potential. Neither had understood that humanity's true strength lay not in passing tests or fighting wars, but in their ability to turn enemies into allies, to find hope in despair, and to face an uncertain future with courage and compassion. The galaxy would never be the same, but then, change was what evolution was all about, and humanity, with all its beautiful contradictions, would help guide that evolution not toward some cold, perfect efficiency, but toward something far more valuable. A future where difference was celebrated, where chaos and order danced together, and where the impossible was just another problem waiting for someone crazy enough to try solving it. After all, that was the human way.